I am so excited to be here today, and I've done 3 takes already to get this right. So here we go. We are with Doron Lazarus with Executive Sleep Consulting. He is a sleep coach, and it's something that I really need. This is why it took 3 takes. We came back from America. I have a little bit of jet lag, actually a lot. I'm having trouble sleeping at night, and then I can't even form my words and my sentences. I can't even get everything out straight. But we're here today because we're going to talk about how sleep affects us, our dating, our relationships, and how it's all intertwined. And sleep is really something that I have had on my to-do list for a long time. Like I've worked on eating right and exercising and sleeping, right? Those all go together. But sleeping has been an interesting balance for me. And I kind of figured out my own routine with your support, actually, about what actually works. Dig in a little bit more and have you help us flesh out how this works for people who are dating, and just, I don't know, tips and tools and resources, anything that you have that can enlighten us to how to have better, healthier relationships.
Well, thank you very much, Aleeza. It's a pleasure to be here. I know we've really enjoyed crossing paths and seeing the amazing work you're doing with your singles for many years now, and I really appreciate reconnecting in this regard. And yeah, I think that sleep is such a common denominator between really so many areas that we want to succeed in life. And when I was thinking about sleep and specifically the singles and the couples that you're working with, how important that is in, and perhaps a very overlooked point, as I'm sure a lot of your singles are really trying very hard to put their best foot forward in the dating world. They're getting
Right.
dressed great and they're getting coached by you and your team and who to look for and how to look for and how to navigate that whole process. And sometimes the stress of that and the amount that's on their mind can really take their toll in sleep. And many people are really trying to spinning their wheels and trying so hard, they don't realize how much sleep is weighing them down.
Right.
And I just,
Right.
I see with a lot of my clients how kind of all encompassing, I mean, not only just the normal things, but even, their mood, their focus,
Right.
their clarity,
Right.
their communication skills. And so many of those are the soft skills that are so important in dating that I really think that there's a tremendous amount of overlap.
Right. Well, the other thing that we also focus on in terms of dating is having clarity when you're dating, and if you know this is the one. And often people call us and tell us we're losing sleep over that, right? I'm up at night because I'm trying to make a decision and I don't know if this is my person or it's not my person, and I'm trying to figure it out. And they're sitting there spinning out in their minds, and they can't get any rest. They can't mentally shut down, so they're not physically shutting down, and then they have to go out again, and then they have to try again to make a new decision with even less sleep, and then it's compounded over time, so it does make the whole process even more difficult. And I see for me, right, I'm not putting thoughts together clearly in sentences, and just from several nights of bad sleep, it's really throwing off my balance, my normal healthy relationship balance. So how do we approach this? What do we work on, and what are some things that we can do to improve either our sleep or our thinking about our sleep or anything to do with the process?
That's a very astute observation. And yes, a lot of the people that I've spoken to are in that similar chapter in life. So I would say just a few observations. Obviously, we could speak for a long time about sleep. Just to share a few thoughts. The first of all is that don't try to make big decisions late at night. And I would imagine, people come home from a date and it was
This is what
whatever
we
date
talk
that
about.
was. And they probably have so much in their mind like, is he for me? Isn't he for me? Back and forth. And really,
Right.
that's not the time to process that information. It's clinically
Right.
proven that just, especially if you've just come back for a date and it's late at night or you have all these things, don't try to come to a conclusion at that point which way you're moving
Right.
forward. Your brain is
Right.
just not working functionally. Be okay in that zone of I'm going to sleep on it and I'm going to have clarity tomorrow. And it's amazing, even for my own life, how I've tried to process things at night or had big conversations at night or intense conversations at night. And then you wake up the next morning and just everything seems so much clearer. And you're like, why did I say that? Why did I think that? Why was I
Right.
even running my head through that gamut? It's amazing when you wake up in the morning, you really have this gift of clarity. And I think even for couples to know that that's their limitation, to not have those intense, life-changing conversations at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Meet for breakfast the next morning and you can discuss it
Right.
then. I think that's a really
Right.
important principle, just to kind of people to keep in mind, to recognize where their biochemistry is at and how important these life decisions are and everything that they do. I think
I
even
really, I really love this idea. And I want to just dig in a little more because sometimes people say, if you have an argument, right? Like, don't go to bed angry. And sometimes the answer is, no, it's okay. Go to sleep, right? Let it dissipate. Let your mind, as you're sleeping, your sleep is what's going to help you to work through everything that's going on. And then wake up in the morning. And like you said, you're fresh. It's a new day. Something has cleared in your mind. And maybe you can have a different type of a conversation. We're not always able to resolve things, even in long-term relationships, in that moment, even if it's at night. Right? It's not that I hate you or I never want to see you. It's just I don't know how to handle this, and I don't know how to handle you, and I don't even know how to handle me. You know what? Good night. See you in the morning, or good night. We'll talk to you in the morning, and we'll put this on the side for now, and we'll deal with it another time. And I love it, and I love that there's science to back this up and prove it. I call it affectionately the bewitching hour. I was like, anytime after about 8:30, 9 o'clock. I say 8:30 because if I say 9 o'clock, people think it's 10 or 11.
Right.
You could forget it. You are sunk at 10 or 11 o'clock. I tell people there is nothing good that can come from a conflict or a conversation that is digging in and rubbing. You never want to have those conversations at night. It's 1,000 times worse. It is so much more big in everybody's mind. And also people do make decisions and then it's like, I just can't think about it anymore. So if I can't think about it, I'm just going to end it. And then that's the decision that they make, which is not really a proper decision.
Right, 100%. That you're really spot on with that, and I think it's such dating in essence is really just the seeds, is laying the foundation for what your dynamic is going to be throughout life, and to be able to have those healthy boundaries, and to be able to say, look, in the same way that a married couple has to have boundaries, and sometimes the first time that the couple is talking is 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and so it's you have to really
Right.
find that balance, but to be able to say, look, after 10 o'clock. I'm not able to process. I need to give myself time to unwind. I need to give myself permission to be able to detach from these very emotionally intensive, a lot of thought process. I need that for myself to best give to this relationship, to be the best spouse or significant other than I can be. I have to know my limitations. And that means after 10 o'clock, my work's not getting a hold of me. My dating
Right.
partner's not getting a hold of me. And being comfortable also
Right.
in ending a date. Sometimes a date can be going so well, but sometimes being comfortable, okay, now it's 10 o'clock. I have to be heading home. It was such a wonderful night. Not that that's a bad thing, but having that clear sense of respect, of confidence, of boundaries really enables us to be our much better selves. And I think when many people know this to be true, but we get so
Right.
caught up in those
Right.
late night things, and then one thing leads to another, and then we get stressed. And then what I often find is when people's sleep gets thrown off for a few nights, that actually morphs itself into a new anxiety called sleep anxiety, which is the primary issue of insomnia. And they'd be like, well, what if I don't sleep tonight and I got the big date and then I'm going to sleep the next night? And then that just really snowballs out of control. And that's usually when people call me to
Right.
get involved. They've got to lose track of their sleep. But to be able to
Yeah.
preempt that and to be able to not go down those, to really have healthy habits, to know your boundaries and know your personalities. I think this is also one thing that people
Right.
might not be cognizant of when a couple is trying to figure out, are we compatible? Are we attracted to each other? Is our personality compatible? Or our lifestyle or vision? Think about how your sleep is compatible. Now, that doesn't mean they have to be the same. Just as personalities, you can have opposites attract. Oftentimes, they'll get couples, he's a night person, she's a morning person, which works great, because he's taking care of the baby at
Right.
night, she's during the morning shift. That's fantastic. But to be able to almost
Right.
kind of feel out that synergy and to be able to
Right.
respect each other's sleep cycles, support each other's sleep cycles, wanting each other to feel healthy and balanced, I think that's a big part of the relationship. And oftentimes, I'll get that in the dynamic of the marital sphere that people might not have taken into account, before they got married. But I think it's an
Right.
important thing to discuss and to have insight into.
It's really, really big, really important. It's definitely something that my husband and I have struggled with because he's that morning person. I'm a wannabe morning person who's always a night person. And so we've really had a little bit of this conflict that you're talking about, which is 10 o'clock for me is early, right? 10 o'clock, I'm like sharp, I'm ready to go. There's conversations I'm ready to have. And he's like, I'm winding down. It's not just that I don't want to talk about something important. I don't want to talk about anything. Like I'm done with the world. I'm in like the shut me down mode. I'm like this close to sleep, right? I'm 50% there, and if you leave me alone, I'll be 75% there. And right by 10:30, I'm done. And for me, I had to adjust to making sure that we have conversations. And he likes to talk early in the morning. He's a morning person,
He's
right?
like, let's make
Yeah,
a cup of coffee at 5:30. We'll be in such a
yeah,
good
yeah.
mood, you know.
I don't talk in the morning. Like, the best time to hang around with me, if you don't want to hear me talking, try me in the morning, right? I just say hi, yeah, that's it. Nothing. Like, maybe by 10 o'clock, I want to have a conversation. You know, if I wake up extra early, right, I'll work on myself. But I'm not interested in talking in the morning. So we like to have sometimes lunch dates or early dinner dates or things like that, where we're both at a compatible talking time, where we meet somewhere in the middle, but we're definitely more on the opposite end of the spectrum. And it totally plays into our relationship. It's something still my husband reminds me, like, I mean, I'm telling you, 2 weeks ago, it's like, sweetheart, it's 10:15. I'm like, oh, right. Sorry.
You're like, there are 3 appointments tonight. You know, I'm working US hours
Right?
over here.
That's it. That's like, I only have another 15 minutes. So, like, let's squeeze this in and then I have to go back to work.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Another thing that many people might not realize and how much it affects the relationship is snoring. I deal with a lot of couples who do not sleep in the same bedroom anymore, unfortunately, because one couple snores so loud, and the other couple can't handle it. So, that's not that. Again, I'm not getting anybody's decisions about having those conversations or experiences before marriage, but it's just worth keeping in mind about the compatibility and just thinking about those kind of questions about whether this couple is compatible in any way, because it really can break the
It
dynamic of
does
a
affect
marriage,
the
so
sleep.
even from early on, she's a very sensitive sleeper, he's a heavy snorer, and like, they're totally
Right.
incompatible in this regard. So it's, there's a
Right.
lot of sleep dynamic that goes into a couple's chemistry that's really important, at least investigating about how that dynamic works best for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had a lot of couples that have, we've worked with them, and then later on they find out things, they come back like, how do we deal with this? You helped me with dating. Now, what do we do about that? And so, we sometimes have these follow-up conversations, and it is difficult. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think snoring is something that is, quote, normal and very common. Some people use a CPAP or a certain machine or some device to try to work with it or help it. And other people, like you said, literally have to sleep in the other room because it's so noisy that they can't handle it and it's too much. So, and it has a tremendous effect on your quality of sleep. And it's not just for the other person, for the person who's snoring themselves, it actually does wake them up more. So it is something worth looking into and getting fixed, because I mean, you're the expert, but I'm pretty sure it's all a part of the process of having healthy sleep habits.
Right, 100%. And if people are snoring and there is apnea involved, that's something that's a very significant health factor that, and I think at least in my own experiences, I'm sure you deal with a lot of couples, the process of dating is a process of self-exploration. They're really learning a lot about themselves. What are they like? What are
Yes.
their strengths and weaknesses? And I think that the sleep dynamic really needs to take a part in that, especially I think when people are single, so they can kind of pull off their crazy sleep schedule. But when they're settling
Right.
down and wanting to start a family,
Right.
they have to think about, who am I? What are my strengths? What's important to me in that regard? And they're really, they have to learn a lot about themselves and gain that inner awareness. And just like you were saying, there's actually a whole book's been written on different, just as we have different personality traits that I know some people are very laid back, some people are very, uptight, and there's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. You have to be aware of your personality type and how to accentuate its strengths and know your weaknesses and being aware and in control of your weaknesses. And the same thing about
Right.
sleep, that people have to know where their strong points, where the weak points, and be able for the couple to indeed have that dynamic that, they're not, he's like, well, why did she blow up at me?
Right.
That's her personality type. She
Right.
wasn't ready for that conversation at that hour, and really to
Right.
be able to
Right.
communicate those needs. Because, just like in the 5 love languages, my language can be here and your language can be there. Like, well, why aren't you seeing that love?
Why
Why
aren't
aren't
we
you feeling that? And she's
connecting?
getting
Right.
frustrated in that whole thing. And so too with sleep. Like, oh, I didn't realize, that wasn't a good time to talk. That's not when you're on your A game. And, oftentimes we'll be running lab results and we'll see people's cortisol and melatonin patterns throughout the day and night, and everyone's different. And that's
Oh,
something we really
wow.
have to be aware of our own cycle of. Some people just burst out of bed and they're ready to go, and some people have this really kind of slow
Oh my
wind up
gosh, I
throughout the
want to know
day.
my cycle. I could probably tell it to you from my
I,
energy.
I'm
But
sure.
oh my gosh, that's so fascinating. I love that there's the science that's behind this that backs up everything that you know and that you do and how you teach people and how you work with people. And it's extremely valuable that it's very individualized, like that you would understand, oh, her husband's a night owl and she's, awake during the day. Okay, so for Aleeza, we're going to do like this. And I know when we've spoken, you said, well, if you're not getting your sleep at night, even though we know the ideal system, you have to make it up somewhere if you have that sleep deprivation.
Right.
And it actually was transformative for me. I started to take power naps, like the 15-minute power nap during the day. That was one thing. But when I didn't have 15 minutes, I was like, but I need 5. So I would take a 5-minute power nap. And when I didn't have 5 minutes, I only had like 2 minutes, Rabbi. I closed my eyes and I fell asleep, and like I set my alarm and poof, I woke up and I was like, okay, oh, that was a good minute. I was so exhausted that I really had to grab that minute. And I took it to heart that we really have to pay attention to what's happening with ourselves and have an awareness of how we're functioning and make sure that we're functioning at our best. And when we're not, to get the support that we need to figure this out, because it affects our dating. It affects who we are, what we do, like you said, how we react, right? If I would have had a conversation when I was dating my husband and we would have tried to have a conversation at 10 o'clock, and if I know that we did, he was pretty much on his way right out. He was pretty exhausted, even though, trying to be perky and peppy and happy and, all of that, but like, he was pretty mellow. But catch him during the day and he was a busybody and he was doing stuff. And so I also like to tell people, you have to date different times of the day, because you can't just go out at night, because if somebody's not a night person, you're going to miss their whole personality. Right. And based on the sleep and everything that you're saying, I think that that's spot on, that you have to experience people, like you said, when their cortisol is at a different level so that you can get a sense of who they really are.
Sure. 100%. Absolutely. And I think just kind of echoing that, I'm sure you deal a lot with people going through the dating process. Many people have issues. We have baggage. We all have issues. And some people, I think, unfortunately, are looking to their future marriage to be able to fix that issue of, when I get married, my husband or my wife is going to be able to fix me in that regard. I'm not going to have this issue anymore. And I think that's a really unfortunate reality, and it's a misstep and a misjudgment and a disservice to their potential spouse, because very often issues get exacerbated when we go into a marriage. And to be able to, of course, we're all not perfect, and life's a process, a journey, and an exploration. But if we know there are significant things, like now, let's say sleep issues, don't go into a marriage with sleep issues thinking. And I was speaking to a female client of mine who was in the singles scene, and she was like, oh yeah, when I get married, my sleep issues will resolve themselves. I'm like, lady, no, they're not. Like, they're actually going to get a lot worse. You're going to have a lot more stress, and you're going to have kids, and then hormone, and then it's just like, I deal with it on the flip side all the time. I have very common client. I'll have, mother, 2, 3 kids. After one of the births, sleep got thrown off, and it throws off the whole family dynamic. The husband, the kids, everything really. So when a person's a single, really now's time to invest in that sleep, to making sure their sleep is solid, to making sure they're not bringing in, more baggage and more sleep issues into the marriage than necessary, because it is such a functional dynamic of the whole, the whole family operation over there. So it's really important, something that singles think about, that, really it's something that it's worth getting under wraps now that, they're putting all of their ducks in a line going to the single scene, to not forget about how important sleep is.
Right. I love it. And I think that this is a topic that is not really focused on and not really discussed. And I think that the stress that you're talking about that comes in dating and later on in marriage, and not having an awareness that sleep is one of like the top 3 factors that is going to affect your reaction to something. I think that just having this awareness, just us having this conversation now and people hearing it and going, right, yeah, I know, right? I'm so much sharper, I'm better, I'm stronger, I'm more patient, I'm more loving, giving, caring when I get more sleep. And I'm so on edge and stressed and anxious and all of these other negative emotions when I don't get enough sleep. And just processing that and going like, aha moment, wow, light bulb moment. Let me deal with that. Let me acknowledge that. And let me start thinking about that, maybe researching that. And like you said, starting to work with somebody. If this is something that's severe for you, get the support now, because it's definitely not going to get fixed in marriage. It's only going to get more intense and worse. I usually tell people, if you go in with a problem, whatever your problem is, it's either going to stay the same or usually get a little bit worse. It doesn't always get, if it gets better, it's a blessing. You're lucky, right? But it doesn't always get better. It usually stays the same. Right. It gets a little bit more difficult to deal with over time. And therefore, at least if you understand it, even if you don't fix it. I'm not telling everybody we're going to solve all the problems of the world, including your sleep, right? But if you have an awareness of it and you know some remedies for it and you know how to counteract and counterbalance it, which is again something that I did with you when I was transitioning, especially moving from the States to Israel and talking about timing and late nights and days and naps. And I was like, wait, okay, let's think of, sleep in total quantity of hours during the week, and you can only have a certain deficit. It started to shift my mindset. And I did start to notice when I got what I needed, it was better. And when I didn't give myself that, and I just was running very, very low, I was not just physically tripping over my own feet, I'm tripping over my own words, and I'm not engaging so well with people. And so it was really, it's a great awareness, and it's been a tremendous help for me. So thank you, because you've actually helped my move to Israel be a little bit, you didn't even know it until this moment, but you've really helped my move to Israel be a little bit more smooth.
Amazing.
And
I'm
I'm grateful for that. So how can people reach you if they want to learn more about this and maybe set up a time to talk with you?
Fantastic question. So my name is Doron Lazarus, Doron, Lazarus, Lazarus. People can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or you can go on my website, executivesleep.org, or you can email me at doron@executivesleep.org. So I'm pretty accessible. I'm happy to help. And if everyone's, feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Amazing. I'm so grateful that you came on and that you shared this with us. It's a topic we've never touched, and it's something that I think is it's fascinating. It's something I could definitely talk about for a long time because I have my own sleep issues. And I hope that everybody has enjoyed this and has taken away a golden nugget of wisdom. And I think the key thing from this, if you don't remember anything, if you just remember not to make a decision at night. And what time would you call night? What give me an 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock?
It's very relative to the person. Like you said, some people are night owls. They make their best decisions at night. So really dependent on the person, but you have to know yourself. People feel that. I think for some people it's 9 o'clock. For some people it's 11 o'clock. For some people, it's 1 in the morning, and they're powering through that.
I got it.
So I think it's about developing that inner sensitivity to be aware of, how am I feeling now? Where's my mood? Where's my focus? Where's my ability? And not put pressure on myself that I have to make those snap decisions. Give myself the next morning, know my sweet spot, and really to be able to harness that.
So maybe also telling a matchmaker, if you're working with matchmaker, hey, I will get back to you in the morning because I like to sleep on it. And then if you want to get back to them earlier, you have the freedom to do that, but there's no pressure to do that. And also telling the person, like, let's talk, we'll follow up in the next morning if you're not going to give them an answer right away. I think at least it takes all of the pressure off. And I'm going to say, if you're not a night owl, really 8, 9 o'clock, you're done. No decisions for you. If you're a morning person, you could forget about it. Night owls, like you said, the hour really differs. But there does start to be a bewitching hour, 11, midnight. Like it just happens. I've seen it too often. So I'm going to call it somewhere 11 to midnight, but I appreciate that you're so flexible and fluid with understanding and letting people know themselves. I think that's amazing. And I think that's what's unique about what you're doing, that it's not just, oh, here's, a product or a service and it's one size fits all. I think you have one size fits everyone. Each individual person fits each individual person. It doesn't fit all, it just fits you, and it's built around a person and around their sleep habits, their schedule, and their needs. And I think that's what's incredible and really amazing about what you do. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And
thank you so much for having me.
We'll be speaking again.
Amazing.
Yeah, it'll be my pleasure.
Continued success with all of your clients and all of your work in Israel and around the world.
Amen. Thank you. And thank you everybody for tuning in, and you will catch us another time.